When I say consulting, I mean the working on an hourly basis, the trading dollars for hours. Because no matter how much you charge, at some point you're going to get sick of doing it. Okay? Now, what I charge for an hourly consultation is $2,500. I was able to say that with a straight face, right? The reason I say it for a straight face is because I turn people down at that all the time because I can't be bothered with it. Now, I'm not saying this to be some big ego or be super impressive, but no matter what you charge, at some point, it's not going to be worth your time. You only got about 2,000 working hours in a year. So I turn down the $2,500 all the time because it's just not, it's the only time I'll tell you what, like if I go to the bike store and I see a really nice bicycle, I'm like thinking, or I go to a guitar store and I like see a really nice guitar and I'm like, that's like a sweet Taylor. It's $3,100. And I'm still at the point where I just don't go, I don't go spending $3,000 on a guitar without thinking about it, okay? I don't spend $5,000 on a bicycle without thinking about it. I still think about those things. In fact, what I think about most is that $5,000 bike really cost me $10,000 because I have to make $10,000 to pay the taxes for the $5,000 bike. So there are still times where I'll see that guitar and I'll think, man, if I just do like 2 hours of consultations, I could have that guitar. So sometimes I'll still get pulled into it, but it doesn't happen too often. What I'm getting at is maybe the rate you're willing to say to someone is $100 an hour or $200 an hour or $600 an hour. At some point, you're going to get sick of that. That's why consulting sucks. Because you can't, it's a job, no matter how, unless you can charge like $300,000 an hour, but no one's going to pay that. In reality, there's going to be times where that would be worth it, very worth it to the client, but no one's going to pay $300,000 an hour. And frankly, even if you were charging $300,000 an hour, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the world that would be chump change for them. There's this book, How to Be Rich, How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis. It's an interesting book. You might want to take a look at it. It's not like this guy's off on a Caribbean island writing poetry all day long. But he got rich to do that. And before he did that, and I'm sure $300,000 an hour for him probably isn't like, he's like, I got another verse to write, But what I'm getting at is the hourly, we'll talk about the hourly because there is a space in this business for the hourly stuff. But in the long run, it's not, it doesn't work for you. So what does that mean? That in the long run, the only way is to build a big company, add layers of staff, add people under you, on and on and on. Bottom line, hourly consulting, it's like having a job. Now the PLM model, which we're going to get into, you're selling on value. I mentioned that earlier. The value you create in a launch is huge. Typically what I'll say, it's hard to have any rules of thumb, but typically what we're talking about is most companies can make in a week the sales they would make in a year. And it's, like I said, it's all over the board, but it's amazing how we see that over and over and over. A business that's doing $200,000 a year, they'll do a launch, they'll do $180,000, they'll do $220,000. So if you can bring that kind of value, obviously people are very, very interested. The leverage is huge because the model works and so many people are not marketing right, they're not treating their lists right, they're trying to sell people instead of leading them into the purchase. So that means the results you're getting are really, really highly leveraged. The value creates really, really huge. So you get a percentage of that, and they're frankly happy, in most cases, very happy to pay you that percentage. Especially, they're happy to agree to it beforehand because it's just play money. They can't believe they're actually going to do that. They can't believe they're going to do a year's worth of sales in a week. Now, there's the other side, there's the other part of the population, the people that think they've got a $15 million launch because they're going to do this $27 ebook on on how to fill your thermos or something like that. But the value you bring is huge, so you can get huge sums from your clients. Another thing you can do is, and we'll talk about, I'll mention this briefly, we'll get into this more later on, but there's this go horizontal and then vertical. So what I mean by that is when you start out, you might be taking clients from all kinds of different niches, or maybe several different niches, or several different industries, or several different types of products. But eventually, so you're horizontal, you're taking different markets, Eventually, you go vertical. Right now, I'm vertical in the internet marketing space, okay? I can do launches and help people with launches in the internet marketing space and get amazing leverage. Because all they have to do is a client says to their joint venture partners, hey, Jeff Walker's working on this launch. Instantly, they get tons of joint venture partners because I have this reputation in that market, this vertical market. All of a sudden, I have amazing leverage. I can, now, since I'm a bit more in the spotlight than your average person, so I can't completely cookie cutter my content, but if I was, say, in a different niche, say like real estate, I could cookie cutter the content. So I've created this launch, I've created the sales letter, the pre-launch, the JV stuff. I can take that same material and reuse it in another launch. Now, I'll always tweak it. I'll always change it. Obviously, the sales letter's got to change, especially the offer. But you can go, when you go horizontal to vertical, you increase your leverage. So I've gone vertical in internet marketing. I'm going vertical right now in the real estate investing market. All of a sudden, that market's getting organized. The partners are getting organized. They actually all know who I am. I'm involved in a launch right now that's going to be very, very big. That launch is going to make my name even bigger in that market. I'm going vertical there. Your leverage increases. So, like, if you're out there and you're in the guitar niche, or you're in the learn how to play piano niche, and you start to consult on launches, and you start to do one or two and have great success, all of a sudden you're going to start to go vertical. And when you go vertical, then your leverage increases that much more. There's so the whole personal development market, that market's starting to really organize. Someone's going to get in that market and go vertical with that. Does that clear? The vertical, horizontal. A lot of times you end up going back to horizontal and back to vertical, or you can go vertical in multiple markets, which is what I'm doing. Very, very powerful stuff. Then you can stack your launches. And so this is, I'm going to go into great detail on our model and the way we work with people. But there's multiple ways to work with people. And like one of the ways is when you're stacking your launches, which is this idea of the worst launch someone's going to do is their first launch. When they stack the launch, they go through the first launch, they build their list, they get their people excited, they come out of it with a hot list of prospects, a hot list of hot list of prospects. They come out with a hot list of buyers. They come out with some very ecstatic JV partners. They come out with a list that's trained about a launch, so they know how to buy during a launch. The next launch gets better and better and better because you've got everyone trained and everyone excited and everyone on board. So once you get involved with a client, you can stay involved with them, and you can work on their relaunches and their next launches and their next launches. So there's so many leverage points in this product launch manager training. There's the leverage of you're working on value. There's the leverage of going vertical. There's the leverage of stacking your launches. Now, typically, I told you about that. I started off with that 15% or $15,000 and 10%, and we keep on upping it. Now it's typically $25,000. It's 15%. It can go as high as 50%. And some of that varies by your client, what they bring to the table. If Apple comes to me and they say, we want you to launch our iPhone, our 4G iPhone, and I'm sitting across the table from Steve Jobs, I'm going to say, dude, I need 25% of that. And no, I'm not going to take 25% from Apple. Okay? They can get me for less. So, Steve, you got me. You can get me for less than 25%. But the numbers keep on going up and up. We get paid up front. This is a key thing. We don't get the percentage up front, but we get that, whatever you want to call it, the retainer, the upfront fee. Why do we get that? We get that to put the person on our calendar. That's, when I'm talking to someone, it might be, when we get to the point, and this is pretty far down the road, but when we get to the point where they want to know how much they're going to pay me, And at this point, they're rabid to buy from me. Typically, our normal customer way of working with a client is we get an upfront fee, and that's small. Maybe it's like maybe $25,000, and that's just to get on our calendar. And then when we go through the launch, we get paid X% of the gross of the launch. So it's just to get on our calendar. And that's really what it is, because we got to slot people in. We'll talk about that later on, your timeline in your business, slotting people in. But really, you got to get paid up front. You're going to have a lot of people come to you and say, how about if you do this and I'll give you 20%, or I'll give you 50%, or I'll give you 70% of the, I don't have any money to pay up front. And right there is when you start thinking, okay, next. You don't get into a deal where you're not getting paid up front. This is critical. You'll get sucked in. You'll get sucked in with someone with a really good story, and you won't get paid that money up front. I've been there. And I put a lot of work in on launches that never happened. Product never got done. Whatever, partnership split up. You get paid up front. I have been in a relationship where I was the marketing person and someone else was the content person. And you know what? The content person almost always thinks they are the business. You know how many content people there are in this world? For every marketer, there is like 10,000 content people. Marketers, content people. Another way to think of it is marketers, experts. Bazillions of them, very few gods. Very few gods. Okay? Your biggest issue is going to be, and we're going to spend a lot of time on this, client selection. Picking the horse. What horse do I want to back? Getting behind the right horse. Picking the right client. Because that 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 25,000 you get up front will end up being chump change compared to the percentage of the launch. But only if that launch happens. Only if they deliver a good product. Only if they can deliver on pre-launch content. Only if they can actually work with you without having this monster ego. Only if you can stand to work with them. You have to get paid up front.